this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me tonight. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to blend using different qualities of acrylic paints. I get asked a lot about craft paints versus student quality paints versus professional heavy body acrylics. So I'm going to show you a little bit about each one of those and how to blend with them, few little things that might help you with your paintings. So let's get started. Okay, so I did this earlier today just to kind of test them out, and I would guess just by looking at it, you really can't tell which paint is which, right? This one is the Kraft acrylic, so I used the DecoArt Ceram Coat for those, and I used white, phthalo blue, and black, and I was very impressed with how well it covered. The one thing that you'll notice is the blacks are not as deep with the Kraft acrylics. That's because they have a little bit more fillers, and those fillers are generally a little bit on the white side, so they'll dull down the paint color and it won't be quite as vibrant, but they did really well. The next row was the Liquitex Basics, and this is the brand that I usually recommend with my students. We've used this for several years with my student classes, and it's right in between. The Kraft acrylics are very soft and smooth, and these are a little bit creamier, a little bit thicker. And then this last row is the professional quality paints. So the first thing I'm going to show you real quick is the coverage. So that's one of the main differences. And I'm just going to use the Kraft acrylics first. And I've got a little mini canvas. I have found that spraying down a dry canvas will help a lot. I'm going to blot it a little bit because I don't need it super damp. I just want it a little bit wet. And I'm going to put that on, and you can tell that this one's actually covered pretty well. Goes on really quickly, super smooth. The one thing that you'll notice is that there might be a little bit of streaking. And that's really normal with Kraft acrylics. So if you're using these to do tutorials, you might need to do 2 coats to get a thicker coverage.
Do you need
Switch
a
brushes.
palette cam on?
Yes, please. Yeah, I thought. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
Hey there, everybody.
I know. Sorry, I didn't even announce Mark.
I know.
I'm going super quick tonight. We got trick-or-treaters at the door, and I know you guys are all trying to get to those too. So. Well, we're going to fly through this tonight. This is the student quality paints. I did not wet down my canvas, but what I can do is kind of wet it a little bit with my brush here and then go back and grab a little bit of that paint and put it on. It goes on a little bit thicker. Covers a little bit better. It's not as smooth. It's, it takes a little bit more work to get it on the canvas. But it's actually really pretty well. I usually put it on one direction and then kind of go back over and smooth it out in the other direction. So those are the two. You can already see that this one is a little bit deeper color. Right? They're a little bit different in tone too. I couldn't get ones that the phthalo blue with the DecoArt paint was a little bit more on the more like a phthalo blue red shade. It's a little bit more on the red side than the phthalo blue green shades that I'm using for the other two. And then let me grab this other brush. I'm using a lot of brushes today, so I don't have to do a lot of cleaning in between. Trying to save time here. Here's a heavy body acrylic. So let's show you what it looks like when you put it on a dry canvas. See how it does not go into all these little cracks very well, right? It'll kind of just lay on top of the canvas. So that's why you really need to add a little bit of water to your paint. And that will allow it to kind of seep down into those crevices. So usually what I'll do is kind of put like a lighter, more watered down coat on it first, get it to soak down into those little cracks, and then I'll pick up a little bit more of the thicker paint and go back over that while it's still wet and give it a little bit thicker, heavier coat of paint. And this is a transparent color. Phthalo blue is a transparent color, so it will have a little bit of transparency. It doesn't have as much, well, it's not as opaque. And opaque and transparent just means Well, hopefully you know the difference, but opaque just means that it covers over other colors. So if I had a, you know, like in this case, the white, this color is not going to cover over the white quite as easily as an opaque color, just because it's transparent. So I still have a little bit of streaking, but not too bad, right? It covered pretty well. And you can tell the difference quite a bit on these two. This one is quite a bit less vibrant. This one's not dry even yet. This will dry even darker than it is now, just because it's still working it out. So I'm going to set these aside to let those dry, and then we'll do some other techniques on those later. But I wanted to kind of start out with that. That's the main difference, is just the Kraft acrylics are much, much easier to spread and go on a canvas that's dry. They're really nice that way. But as long as you add a little bit of water, you should be able to do just about all the other stuff that you want to do with them. All right, let's do this. Let's try and decide what I want to do here. Let's go ahead and show you some smooth blending through from one color to another. So I'm going to start with blue, and then I'm going to go to the white and then to the black on here. So I'm going to start out with my brush. I've got a little bit of water. I picked up my acrylic paint, and I'm going to go across the canvas quickly from side to side. Now I found that it's not as easy to blend on the canvas. So with these Kraft acrylics, it's really helpful if you'll blend them a little bit on the palette first and then go to the canvas. And I'm just going to go quickly side to side and really not try to go up too much into that other color. Once I get the color down, I can wipe my brush off really well, and then very, very lightly just pass it back over the top. See how that smooths it out nice and soft. And I can even pick up a little bit of that darker color if I wanted to and go back down over the top with that. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit of the white. Blend that down. I kind of go below kind of where I wanted to start, and then work my way back up into the other color very softly. That way the heaviest color is going to be down here where I want it. So let me grab a little bit of black. I don't know if I left myself enough room to do the black to white, but we'll try. A little bit of black, a little bit of white. Okay. You can see how I'm working very quickly with this wet on wet type of technique. This is what this is wet paint in wet paint. The key is speed. Working on these smaller canvases is obviously a lot easier than it would be on a bigger canvas. And if you had an area where you were trying to fill in, like you couldn't like just kind of go real quickly side to side like this, like I'm doing, because you're gonna, have to try to fill in, like maybe on a flower petal, or something like that. That's where some of the mediums will help out and make it a little bit easier to extend the drying time for you, so you have a little bit more workability and you can kind of slow down and get in some little cracks and stuff. So that's the Kraft acrylic. So that wasn't too bad with the blending. Let's go to the next one. And this is the student body acrylics, and here again I need to add a little bit of water to my paint, just a little, to get it to go on the canvas smoothly. I'm going to pick up some of that white, and on the student body and the heavy body acrylics, I find that blending straight onto the canvas is a little bit easier. So it saves me some time. I'm not fiddling with blending it over here and then bringing it over back and forth. It just kind of goes a little bit faster if I can just kind of blend it straight on the canvas. So I usually just kind of scoop up some paint and lay it down and then blend it back and forth. And here I'm getting my way too much dark. So I need to get some white.
So will there be a traceable for this?
No.
No? Okay.
Sorry. This is
not even for Patreon people?
Not a tutorial, really. This is more of a demonstration, just kind of some qualities. I haven't done one like this in a while. I did some, I put some links to some of my other kind of demonstrations. I did one that's got brush strokes, and I did another one that's like a color chart. So this is my blending one. Don't think it's, I guess it's a series of 3 so far. Just don't do a lot of these kind of, but I'm going to start doing more of them, I think, because I get a lot of these kind of questions. So see how that's going on nice and softly. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of the black, or work that in this way, the bottom here, side to side. Grab a little bit of water because it's not wanting to blend for me.
We do have a question, though, a real one.
Okay.
Are you changing the stiffness of your brushes?
No, these are the same brush. Yeah, I did that deliberately so you could see the same brush worked on all 3.
Okay.
Yes, it's the same exact brush. In different, some of them are a little different brands, but they're the same softness. Yes.
Okay.
That's a good question, yeah.
I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah, and really, if you want these soft blends, it's really important to have a soft brush. You really can't get these super soft blends like this with a thick, a super stiff, rough brush. So there we go. There's that one. I didn't get the black as black, but that's pretty decent. Kind of running out of room on those little bitty canvases. Okay, let me get a clean brush. And my water's getting blue too, so this will be... Put out a little bit more of this phthalo blue. And you'll see with this phthalo blue, the one thing that that you'll notice the most about these professional acrylics is that a lot of times their tinting strength is a lot higher. They have more pigment in them per square inch or whatever. So a tiny bit of phthalo blue in the heavy body acrylics will go a lot farther than it will in any of these other ones. So I'm going to start out with the white this time and kind of fill in this middle part a little bit. And then I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of that phthalo blue. I'm not going to need a lot. And see how much just that tiny little bit on my brush, how that blends down nicely into them. And I'm going really quickly side to side, very fast. Lay down the paint where you want it heaviest first. And if you have too much paint on your brush, wipe it off and then gently go back and forth very lightly to smooth it out. And I'm going to grab a little bit of that really heavy color there, get it nice and dark up here at the top. So lay that on. You like to whisper too?
No, I was trying to get the dog's attention.
Oh, okay. Scooter's going to have to wear his costume again today. And see how I just kind of lightly blended through that. It only works if you do it while it's still wet. If I was waiting too long, in fact, I'm going to do it over here. So say you can see how it's kind of shiny in some parts and dry down here. So if I go through and I'm like, okay, I want to blend in some more blue right here. I'm going to take some wet paint, thin it down, and I'm going to paint over this, and you see what happens. And I'm like blending, 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 and oh my gosh, why is that not covering right there in that spot? I need more paint. And I'm going to pick up more paint, and I'm going to go back over it, and I'm going to keep blending, and I'm going to keep blending and see how big it'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It is lifting. When I say lifting, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It is lifting the paint because that paint was not set yet. This paint around it was dry, but that part that was wet has become tacky because it is almost dry. It's right at that point where it's starting to get shiny, and it's like you can just tell. It's especially when you see the paint around it starting to dry and gets this dull color. You can see exactly where that wet paint is right here on the shiny part. That's why that happens, and that's one of the most common problems that people have with acrylics. So they just keep adding more paint, and you keep adding more paint because you're thinking that's got to cover sometime, right? If I keep adding more paint, and it won't. It's really it's at this point it's a lost cause. Let it dry. Just let it dry completely, and then put another coat on it. It will cover up eventually, but it won't cover while it's doing this. It's just the mystery of working with acrylics. It's one of the most frustrating parts of working with acrylics, I think. Okay, so now that I've completely ruined that one canvas, no, I haven't. One of the nice things about acrylics is that they do cover very well, so it's a lot easier to cover up any mistakes. It's super easy. So we'll just let that dry completely. Another thing that happens sometimes is you'll accidentally drop a little drop of water on your canvas. And I'm not going to do it on this one, but you get the idea because it does the exact same thing. It'll lift off wherever that water dropped on it, and I have done that multiple times during videos. So if you've watched me before, you've seen me do that. Adding a little bit of water to this heavy body acrylic just to get it to go on the canvas at first, and then picking up the heavier color. You just want the water to kind of settles down in those little crevices on the canvas, and then the heavy body acrylics can kind of go on top. I'm going to wipe off my brush, pick up that white, and my white up here is probably dry or starting to dry, so it may not blend very well for me. I'll probably have to add a little bit more white. So I'm going to clean my brush out really well. Pick up some more solid white. And what I've noticed with heavy body acrylics especially is that the more that you put on, the little bit easier that it is to blend. It's not always the case with like with the Kraft acrylics. I don't know that more is better, but with the heavy body acrylics, they give you a little bit more workable time, I feel like. But you have to put them on a little bit thicker in order to get that workability. All right, so out of all three, obviously this one's much more vibrant. I did start out with the white, so that might have helped a little bit. But I can always go back in now and adjust my values. And a lot of times that's what I'll do, put down the first coat, and I'll go back in and say, I need more white in here. And so I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more white in this area. And it is not completely dry yet, so it's going to start lifting. So I'm not going to mess with that. Let's try this one. A little bit of water. And the water now, just by adding a little water to my brush here and to the canvas, I can pull some of that white up. Now it'll make this cloudy instead of, because it's not mixed with that blue, right? It's just kind of setting on top of the blue. So if I want it to be a little bit prettier, softer, I can grab some of that blue mixture and kind of put some of that in here. And one of the nice things about acrylics, the Kraft acrylics, is you don't have to worry about them under binding to the canvas quite as much, by adding a lot of water to them. You can add a little bit more water to the Kraft acrylics because they have more binder in them to begin with. So you're not going to have issues with them under binding like you would with, you know, your thicker heavy body acrylics and things. With the heavy body acrylics, you really have to limit the amount of water that you add. That's why you really kind of want to work with mediums and things if you're wanting to do glazes and things like that.
So would like a blending gel be considered a medium?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, see, there we go. So now we've got a little bit, we did a second coat, and that's really important with the Kraft acrylics. You're really probably going to need a second coat to get the same level of vibrancy as we got with the heavy body acrylics. All right, so let's try some dry brushing, because dry brushing is another technique that I use a lot, and it's very different with kind of not getting them on the canvas there. There we go. Just making sure I can keep them on camera. Very different between the three kinds of paints. So I'm going to show you, like if I have an area in the middle here, say that I want a lighter area in the middle of my canvas radiating out to the black. A lot of times what I'll do is use dry brushing because it's a little bit easier to control. So with the Kraft acrylics, there's so much water in them. They're so fluid that you really have to take out almost all of the paint off of your thing. Even that was almost too much. And lay it down in the center and leave it. Don't keep messing with the center. And start going out. And if you still have too much paint on your brush, if it's like, you know, the same color going out, then you can wipe it again on the paper towel. And I'm just going to keep on working. And as I go out, I'm going to lose more and more paint off of this brush and get a nice kind of radial glow on there. And I can do this multiple times to build it up. But I don't want to put down too much too fast, because if I was to go back in now, this center is already starting to dry, right? So we don't want to go back in and try to add more at this point, because what you'll start to get is this halo effect where the center will, and it's kind of soaking in a little bit more with the Kraft acrylics, so it's not quite as bad of a problem with them. It's not doing the halo effect, but you'll see it really drastically with the other one. If I keep adding more paint and more paint to that center, it's not going to let, there, it's starting to do it. See, because that paint in the middle wasn't completely dry yet. It was just starting to dry, and so it's going to start to lift right there in the middle. So just be aware of that when you're doing dry brushing. If you want to go in and brighten up a center, you may just have to kind of tap it like this very gently and not do the scrubbing thing. You can kind of tap it and get it to sort of work that way. But no, kind of fixed it. But you definitely don't want to do too much scrubbing all in one spot all at once. So there's our Kraft acrylics. Student body acrylics here. Let me get a clean bit of white and out. I'm going to put out some more of the phthalo blue too. Hopefully this is helpful. I don't know. I get, like I said, I get questions about differences. Can I use, you know, my Kraft acrylics? Yes, you can. You totally can. You can get really similar results. You just have to go about it a little bit differently. And so, you know, if you're following along exactly the way that I'm doing it in my tutorial, sometimes you might have a little bit of frustration because it may not, you know, be as straightforward as what I'm doing, you know, but you definitely can still do it. Okay, so here's the student body, the student quality paint. And this one's going to be much more prone to lifting here in the center because it's wet, but it's also, I don't know, it's just right. For some reason, this technique is a little bit harder. So you definitely want to be super careful not to go back over that center at this point. and I'm going to wipe it again because it's still got quite a bit of paint on there. You really want to have almost no paint. Even with no paint on your brush, it still has enough to catch on the texture of your canvas. And I find that this works, I don't know, you can do this on paper too, but I think that if you have a textured surface, it's a little bit easier. But you can see how it already did that halo effect even without us even messing with that center. And the brush is completely dry. It's really important to start with a dry brush and a dry canvas. So I could do it over the top of, you know, my painted surfaces too. This is just a black gessoed canvas that I'm working with, but let's see, I need another. Just work. I didn't have 3. Well, I think I can just use this one. I don't think it has enough of that Kraft acrylic in anymore. Okay, so here's the heavy body acrylic. And this is your master dry brush paint. This stuff, see, because it's so thick, it just does a beautiful job with dry brushing. I can start out and, you know, kind of tap in the center a little bit and then just use very, very light pressure. I don't have to scrub as hard. But I don't have to worry about it. I can have maybe a little bit more paint on my brush than I did over here because it's so thick. It's going to stick to the brush pretty well. It's not going to all like flow off onto the canvas. The Kraft acrylics are great about flow, not so great about, you know, control maybe. The heavy body acrylics are much more easy to control, I think, because they kind of stay where you put them because they're thicker. And you do have to add water to get them to flow and move for you. So there we go. See how just a very smooth, very soft, so much different than that one. Using the same technique, same brush, but that one's pretty good, I think. And I went and did a second coat on that one. So if I go back in and do a second coat, this one's dry enough now. I can go ahead and do that with that student body acrylic. Wipe it off. Tap it in. I'm going to tap a little bit extra paint in the center there, maybe. Try to get it to stick and go around it. But it's just got so much, I don't know, there's something about it, the student body, that's a little bit more difficult for me, I think, to get the dry brush very smoothly blended like this. Still got that halo right there. I can try, let's try tapping in a little bit of solid paint. Very lightly. That'll help. As it goes off my brush, it's kind of, as I'm going around, it's kind of, there's less and less paint on here, so it's, and then I can very lightly, there we go. So we had to finagle it a little bit, but we still got it pretty similar, right? And then this one, I'll grab my other brush here. This one's that heavy body acrylics. Wipe it off. Hopefully this is dry enough. I think so. You can tell right away if it's not completely dry and ready to do it because it'll start to lift. So if you see it sort of lifting off instead of laying down color, then you know to stop and just wait a little bit longer. And you can just hear it kind of catching on that texture, and that's what you want it to do. Beautiful. And I can go back in and tap in a little bit heavier color in the center, just like I did on the other one. Just try to get it nice and bright right there in the middle. So this is, you know, you could do this on like a background or a flower. Sometimes flower petals will have an area that's like bright right in the middle. And it's really hard to get it blended out. So that's when I will go to the dry brush sometimes and use that technique. So same results, a little bit different application. A lot less paint on this one. Needed a couple coats on this one, and this one was a little bit easier, I think. So coverage easier with the Kraft acrylics, dry brushing easier with the heavy body. All right, so let's do some floating. I'll show you that. That's a technique that you can use. It's similar to glazing, and I am going to use a floating medium.
Where's the root beer?
Root beer float?
Yeah.
Har, har.
Oh, we're not. Jeez.
Got your hopes up, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put a second coat on here
exactly.
since I ruined that one.
Hey, I'd like to say thanks to everybody who's come out and joined us tonight for this great tutorial on blending and mixing in the 3 different grades of paint.
Yes.
If you're new to Angela's channel, subscribe, like, give it a thumbs up. And I don't know what's in the links. I haven't checked. So,
yeah, I did put links to all the different kinds of paints. I didn't find a set that had the phthalo blue, but it had a navy blue, so it's probably pretty similar. So I found a set of the Ceram Coat, a set of the Liquitex Basics, and then I have all 3 of these colors down in the links as well. So if you're interested in purchasing any paints, those are down there for you to check out. And then I'm going to use the glazing liquid with the heavy body acrylics over here. It's going to be white-ish, but...
So do the different grade paints work differently on your fingers and hands and stuff? I've noticed that your hands are
they're very dirty tonight. Very dirty. It's because of these little canvases. I'm touching the sides of them. Yes. All right, I'm going to try to get these as clean as I can. Very quickly. Earlier. There we go. Okay, and you notice, I don't know if I mentioned though, for dry brushing, it's really important to have a very stiff bristled brush. So these were Deerfoot Stipplers. They're kind of a stiffer bristled. You can use a brush like this. It's like a hog bristle brush, but just be sure that you don't wet it down. So any of those brushes work really great for dry brushing. Not so great for soft blending, but they're great for dry brushing. Okay, so I'm going to grab this one here, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of floating medium. And this is a way to get a really soft blend on your canvas. It's a great technique to learn. I use it all the time. It's a decorative painting technique, but it works very well for any kind of painting. So I picked up just on the corner, I kind of dipped it into that white paint, and I have the floating medium through the whole thing. And I'm going to find a clean spot on my palette, and I'm just going to press down nice and hard to get this kind of ombre blend between the colors. And I can pick up a little bit more. I'm kind of running out of white. I probably need to put a little bit more out. But Kraft acrylics by far are the easiest paints to blend with when you do to float with, I should say. So I'm going to go across here, and the idea behind floating is that you load your brush with the ombre effect, or with that gradiated, I don't know anyhow what that word is I'm trying to say, but gradient. Thank you. Brain work. So I can kind of keep on working as long as that edge is wet up here. It will flow down. Now I've gone back up into that, so I've gotten it all the way through my brush at this point. So what I need to do is wash that out. very quickly. Pick up a little bit more flow medium, a little bit more white on the corner, blend that through.
Do you have?
And I usually kind of wipe it off my paper towel so I don't have way too much water on here. And I'm going to kind of work that wet edge down, and I can bring it down as far as I need to. But if I want to do a super thick blend like this, using a larger brush is probably a smarter idea, because I can get a little bit wider range of color on the brush, and it'll kind of do more of the work for me. See how that did a little bit better. So I'm going to pull that back up like that. What were you going to say, hon?
Do you have a preferred brand for the different floating mediums that you have?
This one is one that Folk Art sent me. The Deco Art folks sent me. I don't usually use floating medium, honestly. I usually just use water, but I am liking how it's working. So just full disclosure, I'm kind of trying this product out for myself here. So this is just with plain old water here, and I can go back through. There we go. See that? And then what I can do is let this dry completely, and I could go back in and do a another coat with brighter white along the top, and that would give me even a bigger range of gradation. I hope I'm saying that word right. I think that's the right word. My brain's not working tonight. Okay, I gotta leave that one. This one's actually shiny. See how shiny that is compared? This one's wet right there, but see the difference between? That is another thing that you'll notice on, especially the transparent, some of the transparent colors in the professional acrylics, is that they have a sheen. They're beautiful for glazing. They just do absolutely gorgeous blends, glazing. So if you're looking to do like, think, well, on the back of this one, it doesn't show. Some of the backs of them, they'll have this range. They used to have it. There we go. This one's what I'm looking for. It'll show transparent to opaque, matte to gloss. See how that quinacridone is super high gloss, very transparent, thin or thick, so it's kind of in the middle, and then low tinting or high tinting strength. And low tinting, high tinting just means that how well it changes white. So a high tinting strength like phthalo blue is a very high tinting strength, and it will change white without hardly any effort at all. So very little paint to white. It tints very, very heavily. So here I'm going to use the blending glazing liquid from Golden. This will actually also, the Golden glazing liquid, only Golden glazing liquid, not Liquitex and not any other brand that I know of that's glazing. They actually have included an extender, which makes it so nice because it gives you just a little bit extra working time. See how nice that is? Loading it the same way as I did before. I'm going to pull it down a little bit, see how far I can get it to go down and stay smooth. And one of the things that I can do, whoops, see now that started to dry there. Glazing liquid, you really can't fiddle with it too much. I'm going to have to let that dry. I don't want to go back over it because it was starting to lift. But I can go back down here where I've got this wet edge and add just the glazing liquid to that bottom edge if I needed to blend it out a little bit, and it would kind of pull that color down and blend it out for me. So, but I don't want to mess with it too much because it is starting to dry, so I don't want to ruin that. And this one, I think I'll just use water. I have to blow dry it just really quick.
Hey,
Well,
the
okay,
union.
hurry, go do it really quickly. Sorry, I didn't warn him and let him know he was going to be blending or blow drying today. Okay, one of the other things that, while I've got this on here, I'll show you. One of the other things is that with this Kraft Acrylics, your coverage over the top of black, say, this is with the white, is definitely not going to be solid. Here's the student body acrylic, still not completely solid. But if you'll notice the heavy body acrylic, oops, I got a little water in there. I want to keep it fairly thick. See how much better that's covering? That's the main difference between the professional quality, is these opaque colors like white especially cover like a charm. They just go right over the top. These two are going to need a second coat to get anywhere close to that level of coverage. Okay, so one more and then we'll be done. Oh, we've gone 42 minutes. Oh, wow. Okay. I did not realize it was that long.
You get to painting and you lose all concept of time.
I do. I so do. I lost a whole hour when we did the cornucopia the other night.
Yeah.
An entire hour. I was like, oh, we didn't do too bad. We're at 2 hours. And he's like, no, we're at 3 hours. I was like, oh, we're at 3 hours. Okay. I don't know where that other hour went. Yep, time passes fast when I'm painting. Probably not as fast for you over there. Sorry, hon. Probably not nearly as fun for you. Here, I'm going to just use water this time with this one. And this is here again, this is the student body acrylics. I was letting that one dry because I had messed with it earlier. So I'm going to, and that canvas is very dry. So I need to add a little bit extra water. Get it to get down in there. There we go. Then I can kind of wipe off my brush, pick up a little bit more from that same spot where I blended it, wipe off the back end where I want it to stay clean, and go back down. This color is not one that I would choose to go over the white, the phthalo blue, just because it's, you know, look at how milky it looks. It's not a really beautiful blend. Usually what I would do is, you know, maybe do a lighter blue first on the background color, like a light mixture between these two blues, and then blend with this phthalo blue over the top of the middle value color. And that will give you a really beautiful glazing effect. Let's do a little bit of that on this one. You can see that from the side. We'll grab some of the phthalo blue and just glaze a little streak of it across. Just going to water down. I'm not going to use any medium. Here I'm just kind of thinning down my phthalo blue, and I'm going to quickly blend it across here. Add some water. There we go. See how, I don't know, there's just a little bit more vibrancy to that versus this. It's the same two colors, right? But somehow it's just a little bit prettier having that sort of medium color right there in the middle, right there. So let me do that with the heavy body acrylics real quick. Glazing with just water and loading it through the whole brush. You want to go real quickly. Blend down back and forth. And then I'm going to get some more water, kind of clean out my brush, wipe it off, and then come back in here with just water. And I don't want to go up in here because it's going to start lifting. So, and if I get it where I don't want it to go, you can kind of use your finger. You can kind of use that wet brush to lift it. My paint water is blue, so it's not giving me clean water to work with. It's important to have clean water to do this. Okay, there we go. Not as smooth, but we got it fairly close. And then let's do it with the Kraft acrylics. And blend this way. Oop. Got a little bit more paint than water in that one. Pick up a little bit more water. Blend back through. This is glaze. Oh, look what I just did. I flicked it all over that one. Going quickly. Working that wet edge, always keeping that edge that you want to end with, the end that you want it to go, to clear. Keep that edge wet. Up here, you don't have to worry about it too much. You've already got that on there. It's gonna kind of blend itself as it dries. It'll sort of spread a little bit. But this edge right here, you just kind of have to keep adding water to and keep it wet so that it doesn't dry. You just don't want to go too far back up into what's already drying there. So, and you can do that multiple times. I could go around the whole thing. I could add other glazes of other colors to add other layers of depth. And you've seen me do that in a lot of my videos, especially my flower tutorials. I do lots of different layers. But there you go. Yeah, so you can see. Hopefully that helped. You can kind of see different ways of working with these different kinds of acrylics. Definitely very similar looks, right? These are a little bit more vibrant, obviously. The heavy body and professional acrylics are going to be, brighter, darker, but you can still paint with these more inexpensive paints and get really good results. So
can you real quick just point to each one and which paint?
Yes, so these were the Ceramcoat paints here. These were the Liquitex Basics there. And these are the heavy body acrylics right there. So yeah, go ahead and click off that palette. You can, yeah, there we go. Have a little bit more room. So there, and then here's the dry brush too. And I didn't have the black out, but get the idea. Oops. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there, and there. That's a good picture. I'm going to take a picture of that after we're done. So.
Perfect.
Kind of see. There you go. And I used Liquitex in the Mars Black because I didn't have Mars Black in the golden, but you can see that, they're fine.
But
and somebody else asked about mix and matching. You definitely can mix and match the acrylics as long as they're all acrylics. They have the same binder. It's the same polymer binder in them. So you can use this color with this color with, mix the different qualities and actually, you might be able to use a little bit of this white with your, titanium white over here, soften it up a little bit, make it a little bit, last a little bit longer, make it a little bit more fluid for you. You can play with it and kind of see what works for you, but hopefully you got something out of this and enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you on Saturday for a hedgehog tutorial. Should be fun. All right, see you next time. Bye.